two things I communicated with her most often was material-based, if I had a question on content, and secondly, if I had a logistical question, because I was far from Iowa. I wanted to make sure that I met all the deadlines and knew exactly where and how the tests needed to be submitted, and just making sure I got all of those pieces aligned. So those were the two things, material and logistics.
The material that's got me hung up, something just doesn't make sense. Or when the material provided, this information in the textbook, doesn't jive with the quizzes on Angel. When I provide an answer and, hey, that's exactly what it says right out of the textbook. I got it wrong. That's been a fair amount of my communication with online course professors.
Just if I have any questions or I'm uncertain about anything, I would send an email saying, hey, I'm not quite sure about this, or I think they have always made it up front saying, just let me know. But I think just them reaching out first saying, anybody have any questions, how's it going, things like that have been helpful.
I think that the reason why I really enjoyed these online courses through Kirkwood was because I had the same professor each time, and she was very responsive and communicative with email. If I had any question or a comment or needed clarification on a certain topic or a deadline or the syllabus, she responded within 1 business hour of my email, and that was very helpful. So it felt like I was there because she was so responsive and was welcome to having a dialogue between back and forth with email, and that worked very well.
Some are more available than others, and the more available I think they are, that tends to help. If you can email them anytime, you can call them, and that availability really makes the class easier.
Yeah, that's what made the class successful for me, is that she was so available. I think the harder the class, maybe the more available a teacher needs to be.
I had one class where I would email the instructor and I never really got any kind of responses. I didn't understand the material at all, and I passed the class, but I learned absolutely nothing from that class.
Because the teacher at the time wasn't so available, I felt like, I don't think I'm getting as much out of this class as I could have if the teacher was a little more available and helping.
I would expect some availability over phone, but at reasonable hours, past 5, 6 o'clock at night, you get into questionable territory really past that. On the weekends, again, I could see some availability, like, maybe you can call me in the afternoons on the weekends, but that's about all I would expect. Otherwise, I would expect a professor in an online course to be very prompt in email responses, especially with the technology available today that they can have it on their cell phone, and even if they can reply immediately with, let me look into that, or let me think about it, or, I've got your email, let me, take care of it when we get back into work tomorrow, or something along those lines. But as far as in general, I think there should be limits set on availability. I mean, it's nice that a professor says, you can call me at 2 a.m. and I'll be really mad at you, but I'll answer your question. That's nice, and yes, it shows they care, but that's not really fair to them at the same time.
They all give you their email address and even phone numbers if you have to call. Actually, a couple classes I've had very wonderful instructors as far as being flexible in even due dates of assignments. And as far as answering me back, I was always got within 24 hours response from all my instructors, and they were always making sure that you were there. And they would email me also and just say, hey, just a reminder, these assignments are due this week, or hey, it might be a good idea to get started early on this because it's a little bit more of a difficult chapter, just things like that.
I had one where I didn't receive any communication from the professor at all, not one email. I didn't have to send any emails for questions, but I never got an email saying, hey, welcome to the class. I didn't get an email saying, okay, we're all done with this class, take the final by whenever. There was nothing. It was just there, and I got a grade. And I couldn't probably pass a test for that course right now.
I think the things that I really liked, one of the history classes I took, he participated in the discussions as well and kind of gave us tips and hints of where we could find some of the data.
And the professor would email it was about every Monday, she would send out an email to say, all right, students, if you want to stay on track, you should be completed with this section and working on this section and have this done by Friday. So just kind reminders, and that was good incentive. It was enough structure for me to make sure that I met the deadline at the end of the month.
I've taken classes where I got emails, a lot of emails, and it wasn't just the, hey, it didn't give me that blanket email kind of feel. It was kind of more, not really more personal, but, she was like, hey, Christina, how are you doing? I noticed you turned in your assignment right before the due date last week. Is there anything I can help you out with so that you're not doing that again? And so that was really nice because that really helped me feel like the instructor cared that I was even in the class.
When they would post announcements regularly, and what's happening with them personally. I won't be able to reach you this weekend. I'm going away for a wedding, but you can always call me. So that's cool. That's a really nice aspect of that, having announcements regular.
I've had a lot of professors that have said everything deserves a response. If you're going to respond to someone's paper well, you have to provide some response so they know that people are reading it, so they know what to think. Because without some kind of feedback, no one has any idea if they're on the right track. We can't really grow without some kind of back and forth.
Once they were graded, the professor would comment on how you did. They would provide more than just the score. They would tell you exactly where you excelled and what areas you missed points on. And so that was really helpful.
Well, for the most part, the feedback, the quality of the feedback was always helpful, encouraging, but it wasn't without, well, you could do this a little better. Instead of, writing this whole paragraph, this could be condensed into a sentence, sort of ideas, like we're just talking about writing right now. So they were constructive, and helped me a lot. It really honed my writing skills. They pose a question or an idea or a concept in a forum, and we get to maybe answer questions that are specific or just have an open discussion about something. Or if we have questions, we can pose questions in a private forum and interact with the teacher or the other students.
So you'd have to post something, and then you'd also have to reply to, say, 2 of somebody else's posts and stuff. So there was some of that, and that wasn't too bad. Actually, it was kind of nice because you knew you had to get something out there, and seeing that other people were getting it done quicker than you kind of drives you a little bit more to get it done and do it. And plus, it also gives you a chance to look and see what other people are posting and kind of compare what you're doing compared to what somebody else is doing. Might give you different ideas too.
We would talk about a certain person in history and kind of talk about what they did and our perspective of if it actually helped history or if it hindered it. And sometimes, the instructor would be the devil's advocate and throw something in there. And so what do you think would have happened if it had gone this direction? And so that was always kind of really cool to kind of think outside the box and not, when you're talking about history, it can be very dry. And it's a lot of reading and dates and names. And so I really liked that where he gave us a lot of flexibility in the discussions, where he wasn't like, well, you have to talk about this, and this is the way I want you to go. And so it was really nice to have it that way.
How do I say, not only engaging, but it got to the point where we kept on discussing and discussing, and the forum got longer and longer, and I thought, this is really cool. I'm actually feeling like I know these people.
I think the one thing that I always had a really hard time with when it came to discussions is, you have to post the original post, and then you have to do 3 other original posts and post on 5 other students' posts and comment on the posts that were posted on yours. And in some of the areas that I was studying, I didn't have that much to say about whatever thing that we were talking about, and so it was always really, really hard for me to come up with an original thought or suggestion or something like that would get me the points and get me that certain word quota that I had to meet.
There are certain rules that go along with communicating in these open forum discussions, that we're always polite, but we speak our mind. So we actually learned how to think critically, speak our mind in a way that doesn't offend. So when going by those rules, it was really nice, because even though there were rules, it actually created more freedom. And me being able to speak my mind, share my ideas, and get feedback. And never once did I ever experience a student or myself responding in a negative way.
I would say communicate with your students. A lot of students feel like they're alone out there, taking the class by themselves. I've talked to people that didn't even know that they had an instructor. They get, halfway through the class and they're like, oh, I don't know who my instructor is. I didn't know I had an instructor. And I think that personal connection really makes a student more successful in a class and more attentive to the class. Because if you feel like somebody actually cares that you're doing well, or that you're falling behind, and they prod you a little bit, it's just that encouragement that you don't get normally.
And just stay open and offer, let the students know you're available when you're available. And if you're not available on the weekends, that's fine, kind of thing. You have a life too. But if it's clear and it's consistent when, where, and the syllabus is clear, grading is clear, then I think that's all you really need to know.
Make sure to include the online lectures. Those are great. If you can film yourself talking so I can see the professor, that sometimes helps, just to make it more tangible. And like I said previously, email is great. Being very responsive to emails in a timely manner, making sure that you don't feel like you're out there all by yourself, that there's someone on the other end who acknowledges that you're taking the class and is willing to help you and answer your questions.